I don't know if you guys saw this, but the political activist and content creator Walter Masterson posted this a few days ago.
The Trump administration announced that they're going to be investigating me and my friends. And they're going to try and indict me under the FACE Act, the same act that they just indicted Don Lemon under. However, they don't really have a case, but I don't think that's going to stop them from charging me and arresting me. That's just my opinion. I don't think the facts matter to them. Last Tuesday, January 27th, my friends and I went into Democrat Congressman Tom Suozzi's political town hall. We RSVP'd using our names, went in through the front door, went through metal detectors. He started speaking. We interrupted him, and we were thrown out. I was thrown out while trying to read the names of the 9 people that died in ICE custody just in the month of January. So right now, my friends and I are lawyered up, and we are in this holding pattern. We're just basically waiting for the feds to come kick down our door. From what I've heard, they like to arrive between 5 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. That's the sweet spot for them. And I'm not going to stop fighting, and you shouldn't stop fighting either.
The fact that Walter protested in a religious building, even though that's where the town hall was happening, is kind of what the Trump administration is relying on to say that this is criminal. And I'm sure y'all already know that they arrested journalist Don Lemon just for interviewing people in a church run by an ICE officer. You may have also watched my video about the National Security Memorandum, which calls for anti-Christian people to be investigated for domestic terrorism. With all of this, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that they could come after me too. I'm politically active, I've been speaking against Christian nationalism for years, I'm a humanist, I'm a leftist, and I have a decent-sized platform. So I am a category of person this administration calls dangerous. I'm still not as much of a target as a lot of others. The fact that DHS has not yet come to my house makes that pretty clear, and I want to acknowledge that many others, particularly immigrants who aren't white, are both in more danger and have fewer options to avoid persecution than me. But for the past year, I've had so many conversations with the people close to me about leaving the US and what precise circumstances would have me say, okay, it's definitely time to move for my own safety. Would it be when ICE is rounding up American citizens, or when leftist influencers bigger than me start to get arrested? Both of these things seem to be happening now. Here's the thing though, beyond the massive difficulty that would come with uprooting my life and moving to another country, even though I am fortunate enough to be able to do that if I really need to, there's a deeper reason why I want to stay here. I had to do so much to escape right-wing evangelical Christianity and build my own life on my own terms, that now that it's becoming a threat to my physical safety in my own home, I'm just fed up. I'm so done moving through life in reaction to them. Living through reaction has never paid off. Like, the religious right is calling empathy a sin now, and I don't think arguing about that with them has much of a point. I'd rather just act with empathy regardless. In fact, the American Humanist Association, which you guys know I really like, is rolling out the American Empathy Project right now to serve communities all over the country, and I'm definitely going to be involved. You can get involved too. Just check out humanist.org/gmskeptic to learn all about it. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. The AHA has well over 200 local groups all over the country. I'm very involved with my affiliate group here in Austin, which I'm going to talk about later in the video. If you believe that science tells us what's real and empathy tells us what's right, you're probably a humanist, and I strongly recommend plugging in with the AHA. For real, there are very few organizations which have been so on the right side of history as the AHA, and I'm honored to work with them so incredibly often. Them sponsoring this video is actually just one very small part of our ongoing collaboration. So go click that link below to get involved with the American Humanist Association. They're awesome. Okay, if you are new to my channel, I'll just let you know where I came from. I was raised in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. A lot of people think fundamentalist means really strict Christian, but no, fundamentalist Christianity is one specific denomination, and it has been intertwined with US politics since its inception in the 1910s. Two Chicago oil barons, Lyman and Milton Stewart, commissioned and distributed a series of essays called The Fundamentals in the 1910s, which is where we get the term fundamentalism. These guys were American Protestant nativists, not unlike the KKK, who railed against liberal theology, Catholicism, science, and non-white, non-Christian immigration. It was a far-right Christian capitalist political project and was the foundation of the denomination to which my family has belonged since the 1940s, at least. I personally was very devout. I was not the kid who asked too many questions and got in trouble in Sunday school. After I graduated from my evangelical Christian college in 2015, I finally started deconstructing my faith, but I hid this from my friends and family. Around that time, Trump was running for office, and my response was to say, this guy's obviously racist and a liar, not Christ-like at all. But to my surprise, somehow, the Christian community around me was like, no, he's great, and if you're a Christian, you're actually kind of morally obligated to vote for him. By the time that election day came around, though, I was not a Christian anymore, and even though I tried to keep that secret, people started to notice. Evangelicals, as devout as I was, really monitor each other, and people picked up little cues. When it was my turn to lead a prayer, not even at church, but just in everyday life, I could say all of the right words with the right tone of voice to sound just like an evangelical, but to some people, they could still tell that I had these tiny micro expressions which made them doubt that my heart was actually in it. And even though I lived in a totally different city from my parents, they were still able to tell that I was not going to church every Sunday. Eventually, a family member called my wife Taylor over to their house under false pretenses. They waited for a moment to corner her and questioned her about my faith. You've got to realize in the fundamentalist evangelical world, if you leave the faith, the consequences are catastrophic. Taylor was not being asked a question about my personal preferences or hobbies or something here. The fact that we were adults was not in any way relevant to my family's inquiry into this. She was effectively being asked, should we as a family keep behaving normally? Or should we treat Drew as a criminal who needs to be belittled, accosted, and manipulated to fall back in line immediately? Taylor said that the family would need to talk to me directly about that. This made a conversation about my faith inevitable. I'd been hiding my deconstruction for a year at that point, so I decided to finally be honest. That did not go well, and suffice to say, I was belittled, harassed, and manipulated straight away. In 2017, I started this channel just to have a place to share and process my new secular thoughts. It became very important to me very quickly, but it also gave me another thing to hide. I knew that if my family knew I made videos publicly expressing myself, their harassment would get even worse. So while I spent a lot of my time making videos, every time anyone came over to my place, I took down my camera, my mic, my background. I even hid the laptop I used to edit under a bunch of blankets in my closet. The stress I felt over hiding everything became so severe that I almost quit making YouTube videos altogether several times. If you want to see a little window into my world at that time, I tell this story as it was happening in this video from early 2018. This video is not just for my subscribers. It's also for those who are close to me and don't yet know I'm an atheist and will see this sometime in the future. It's enough that doing this makes me happy, and it really does. It should be enough for my friends and family too. Still, my videos ended up reaching more people than I'd ever anticipated, including my family. Now, to be honest, I don't even feel comfortable discussing everything that happened as a result, but the abuse I faced from family escalated from there, although I was framed as the abuser. I was told that my videos about my own thoughts on religion and science were malicious and targeted harassment of the people and community who raised me. When I debunked conspiracy theories or alternative medicine claims, they said I did it to bully them. They told me, remember, an adult at this point, that I needed to and kind of had to take down my videos as a first step to make things right. When I asked which ones were supposedly so abusive, they actually told me, I don't know. I haven't even watched them because I just know they're hurtful. People who have been watching my channel for a long time know this, but in my older videos, I spoke so softly, with actually the same voice I used to de-escalate aggressive and reactive adolescents in my direct care and social work days. I did that because I literally was speaking to aggressive and reactive adults in my family through the screen. I thought that if I just presented myself kindly and calmly enough, that they would listen. It turns out it didn't matter how I spoke up. The fact that I spoke up was enough to consider me hateful and worthy of punishment. So when the Trump administration said people like me are being considered domestic terrorists just for having ideas they don't like, I was like, wow, okay, I've kind of been here before. From individual families all the way to the very top, you authoritarian Christian types abuse people, and then if they speak out, you deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. That's a tactic called DARVO, which is a pretty well-studied response which abusers give when called out for their abuse. I don't actually think literally all fundamentalists or evangelicals are narcissistic abusers as individuals, but I do think that DARVO is a part of the institution of the religious right. This is a core part of its culture and its politics. If you examine their views of immigration, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, foreign policy, even economics, DARVO is central. They deny their contribution to any problem, then say that the very existence of people different from them is an attack on them. And because they are being attacked, they're justified in using aggression and violence to make people conform to their wishes. It took me until early 2020 to realize that I needed to take my own life into my own hands. I needed to find social support in real life, and I needed to live in a way that I determined to be best for myself. As a lifelong Texan, I'd always wanted to live in Austin, so Taylor and I moved here and started putting down roots. When I would occasionally visit family, the abuse did not get better. I guess I felt like I was obligated to visit family because they were family, and every time we left their house, I felt like I was living out my escape from fundamentalism all over again. Fortunately, my home here in Austin among secular friends did feel safe for a moment. The Christian nationalism infused with the first Trump administration was always on my radar, but because I was raised within Christian nationalism, it almost felt like a background feature of the world, something I'm so accustomed to that I'm at times just numb to it. As the world in my immediate surroundings became more secular, though, the more I realized, oh, this is even more of an existential threat than I thought. As soon as I have that realization, boom, Black Lives Matter protests are called an affront to God, the National Guard is deployed to contain them, and innocent people were killed by that militarized force. COVID is called a demonic hoax, and evangelicals go fully anti-vax and pro-quack cures. Trump claims the election was stolen, and evangelicals, including my family, largely accept that claim with zero evidence. Everyone starts talking about which famous Democrats literally drink the blood of children in satanic rituals. It was like I had escaped my family, only for a full quarter of the country to turn into my family. Since that time, things have only escalated, obviously, and that feeling has stayed with me. When Project 2025 first surfaced and it talked about deporting all Marxists and criminalizing advocacy for trans rights, I realized that I should consider whether I'm actually going to be safe in this country under Trump 2.0. I mistakenly brought this up with my family at one point, and by the reaction, I'm pretty sure they thought I was being conspiratorial and paranoid. But I kept thinking, isn't this exactly what I was raised on? Y'all taught me that the great enemy of God on this earth was a global conspiracy of satanic communists who want to corrupt children and steal their souls from God. If you had control over the government, isn't this exactly the kind of thing you would do? You penalized me for leaving the faith. Isn't this just the state's version of that? Then this last September, I got a text from family mourning the loss of Charlie Kirk, telling me that he was the same age as me and that they feared for my safety as a public figure just like him. I think that being compared to Charlie Kirk was one of the worst insults I've ever faced in my entire career, even though they did not intend it as one. I wanted to explain so badly that no, the biggest threat to my safety in this country is the government which you support. Seriously, right after the Kirk thing happened, they designated people like me as potential domestic terrorists. I know by now, though, that it'd be a waste of energy to explain that, hey, if I ever disappear or get taken out, it'll most likely be a result of the politics you support. They'd no doubt find that extremely offensive, and I'd be called a bully again for dissenting. If you weren't raised on the religious right, you've got to realize that the posturing of Turning Point USA is really just the same thing that conservative evangelicals in positions of authority, whether parents or politicians, have always done. They say that screaming the truth at anyone who disagrees with them is an act of pure godly love. And then when anyone merely indicates they don't see things the way that evangelicals do, the evangelicals whine about how victimized they are, and they use their supposed victimhood as justification for even more abusive behavior. Us ex-evangelical kids have had to deal with this shit since before we had any kind of political awareness. So, yeah, I guess if something happens to me, my family will probably forever wonder how such a freak accident could ever happen. This seriously tore me up emotionally for a long time, and, obviously I still feel strongly about it, but over the last year, I've tried to learn to stop living in the reaction. Let me get into some detail. Hang with me. For the longest time, I saw our political struggle as just a battle of ideas. So I made content trying to debunk bad ideas and thought that when the religious right's ideas are held by a minority of people, they'll lose power. That line of thinking was quite flawed, though. The religious right has been losing popular support for decades. There are more non-religious people in the US now than probably ever, and most young people already view socialism positively. The religious right's power comes from more than just ideas, then. Even if they don't have more people, what does the religious right have more of than anyone else? Social infrastructure. They have churches and schools and missions everywhere so that even as those places empty out at unprecedented rates, the relatively few people in them wield disproportionate power. Power to indoctrinate, power to intimidate, the power to organize and influence elections. If we simply fight a battle of ideas in public forums, they maintain a massive advantage because their infrastructure will always allow them to punch far above their weight class. So, to live outside of the reaction, to proactively create the future we want, I've stopped spending my time arguing with them and started building that future instead. I meet with an intentional community regularly, and we plan. We plan for how to obtain the resources we need. We plan for how to respond in times of crisis. We plan on how to expand our network so that we can help more people gain the support which we provide for each other. My specific group is called the Atheist Community of Austin. We're an affiliate of the American Humanist Association. We have a small building here in Austin, Texas, which is basically a humanist community center. We do mutual aid, resource drives, host educational events. I host a Star Trek philosophy night once a month there, actually. It's fun. You guys should come. And, we have fun having parties too. Our goal is not to create more atheists or even humanists through proselytizing. There are already more humanists than ever, and most of them don't have anywhere to go to organize. So we're creating the social infrastructure which humanists currently lack, with the aim of eventually helping others do the same across the entire country. It's obviously a long-term project. We expect that there will always be more work to be done, But I'm actually really looking forward to that work. Just in the short time Taylor and I have been involved, my mental health and capacity for hope has drastically improved. I think a lot of us right now feel like we'll only ever feel hopeful again when something huge and world-changing happens to change our current system. And I get that. I've been there. We do need sweeping changes. But I think that the hope and fulfillment we crave from that hypothetical future is accessible to a lot of us right now through community organizing and action. I spend a lot more time with friends in doing all this. I meet more people I like. I see others caring about important things and working together all the time instead of just seeing people, in conflict on the internet. I'm less lonely as a result. I know who I'd call if I had a medical emergency. I definitely know who I'd call if I had a right-wing militia after me. Some of you guys are watching. Hello. I have seen concretely how life can improve with solidarity and cooperation. So I've again become capable of envisioning a future where life just is better. This is what I mean by not living in the reaction. Not only am I involved in proactive community work to build a better future, but that community work is an end unto itself. So while I did escape fundamentalist evangelicalism and its abuse just to see a version of it take over the government and potentially make me a target again, I did learn a similar life-saving lesson in both of those circumstances. Refusing to be held hostage by an incessant and worthless dialogue with them, and instead living in intentional community committed to living on its own terms is the solution. At least it is for me. All right, so to be honest with you guys, I was going to shout out the American Humanist Association at the end of this video, even if they didn't sponsor the video, because I'm calling for you guys to get involved in real-life community. And I think the AHA is kind of the central node of the exact type of community that I think that is best to get involved in if you're like a fan of this channel. So they quite literally do not have to pay me and are not paying me to say this. Yeah, go get involved with the AHA. For real, click the link. I don't think that you're going to regret it. It's helped me a lot being involved. Also, for those of you who have stuck around to this, be on the lookout for an event thing that you can get involved with to come hang out with me and probably the executive director of the AHA on May 2nd in Austin, Texas. Just, watch this space, as they say. And with that, thanks for watching. I've been Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic. A special thanks to my patrons for their constant love and support. And praise be unto Our Lady, River, my top patron and the official savior of this channel. If you want to support my work, then subscribe. You can also check out my second channel where I make other videos. As always, if you are an apostate in need, there are resources linked in the description to help you find community and mental health support. I consider the AHA one of those resources. Remember to be kind to others in the comments. And until next time, stay skeptical.